Just before we start the show, I want to take an opportunity to invite you to join me for the Podfluence Weekly newsletter, which is available both on LinkedIn and through the official newsletter channel. Now, if you are on LinkedIn and it's easier for you to follow there, then please just click on the link in the show notes, which will take you straight to Podfluence on LinkedIn, where you can subscribe for free and get weekly updates on Podfluence articles as well as episodes. If you would like to subscribe to the full newsletter where you'll get additional materials and, as my little incentive to you, my pre-podcast guest checklist for you to use when you're appearing on podcast shows so that you can be fully prepared every single time, then please click the link to the official newsletter in the show notes. Hope to see you there. Let's get on with the show.
This particular episode was recorded a little while before lockdown and pandemic and the likes, so you'll find that doesn't get addressed in this chat. What we do talk about are things like women in business, issues and obstacles that may be faced, networking skills, getting investment for your business. I am joined by kindness warrior Michele Pitman-Martinez, and additionally joined by my co-host and additional guest, really, Aida Diaz-Agero. So I do hope you will enjoy this episode. Welcome to the Loki Podcast with John Ball from Present Influence. We use Buzzsprout to upload and distribute the Loki Podcast to all major podcasting networks. If you're thinking of starting your own podcast, check out the link to Buzzsprout in the show notes. You could start your podcast today. Today, I am joined by my guest host, Aida. Aida, please say hi.
Hello, everyone.
If you've tuned in before, you'll know that Aida was my very first guest on the podcast. She's come back today as a co-host / guest as well. And we are joined by Michele Pitman.
I'm happy to be here.
Founder and CEO of a company that captures kindness and helps students to make a positive impact in their communities. Over 35 million service hours and experiences have gone through her business X2Vol, and her company is inspired by her father 11 years ago. Now, I wrote on LinkedIn that that's 11 years ago today. Is that right?
Yes, December. It was December, so not too long ago we hit 11 years.
Fantastic. Well, congratulations on that. So, Michele, I'm very excited to have you with us. And Michele and I have known each other for a while, although we haven't spoken for a few years, because in my coaching practice, Michele has been a client of mine, and she's been a very wonderful client to have had in the past. And I'm really thrilled that she's come forward and offered to be a guest on today's podcast, because I know that there's going to be a lot of interesting stuff to share.
So maybe I can first ask you, Michele, what is it exactly that you do?
I lead a company. We have a team of 10 people, and we've developed a product that allows high school students to find volunteer opportunities in their community. And they can track all their hours through our platform and all of their experiences. And then they attach it to their college applications. So we are in schools and districts across the U.S. and in Canada.
Nice.
Mm-hmm.
Fantastic. Michele, tell us about how did you come to that? I know you say it was inspired by your father, but how did what you do come about?
Well, my background is in database marketing and technology, specifically around project management. And I had been doing that for many, many years. And so after a while, it's a lot of focus on how to sell more product and the psychographics and the demographics of the audience. And after a while, it kind of got to me. And I thought, I want to use these skills and talents that I have in a different way to really connect people, connect the hearts of people with opportunities to make a positive impact. So instead of trying to convince people to purchase more products, I wanted to be able to convince people to make a positive impact and give them the opportunities to do that around in their community and make it very specific. And so we started with high school students who have a requirement. A lot of students, almost 90% of high school students in the United States have either a service requirement or a service recommendation for graduation. And so I thought, well, with my software background, this would be a good opportunity to gather people who have that similar background as I had in terms of developing platforms and use that experience and those talents to create a platform that would bring people together.
One of the things that we discussed in advance of getting together today was a little bit about raising money from investors. What has been your experience in doing that?
Yes, well, when I started the company, we were self-funding, so we were bootstrapping. We were pooling our money together in order to build the platform and create a proof of concept. And that worked well. There were 5 of us. We put our own money in. We got to a point about a year into it where we needed additional funding. So we went out to friends and family. But in software, probably in any business, you get to a point where you just need that additional funding. And you need a lot more than you think you need, first of all. Yeah. And it needs to be coming in on a regular basis until you have revenue coming in to cover your costs. And so we got to a point after about a year and a half or so where we were getting low on the funding from our friends and family. And in order to go to a larger scale, we needed to really look at bringing in some additional capital. So,
is that something you'd ever had to do before? Approach people for investment?
No.
So how did it feel when you realized you had to do that?
I had never run a company before. I had always been a part of a team and led large groups of people, but I had never run a company before. And so raising capital was definitely not something that I had ever done before. I had no experience in that. It's kind of daunting too, because you don't really know how much you need. You work with what you have. And so a lot of times you just have to be creative with the amount of funding that you do have and work within those constraints. But I knew that we were going to need more and more because there were more things that we wanted to do, and we wanted to be at a national level. Mm-hmm. And my experience was working with large-scale national clients, global clients. And so I knew that was not inexpensive. That was take a lot of money.
How did you approach going in to reach out for investments? How did you set yourself up to do that?
Well, I really didn't know where to start. And then I didn't have a wide network of people who had experience doing that either. So what I did was I went to our local angel network. I live in Dallas, or at the time I lived in Dallas, and we have a lot of resources around Dallas. And we did have we still do have a large angel network. So you can go and pitch your idea there. So I was connected to some people in the angel network. The other thing that I did was I had no experience as a CEO. Mm-hmm. I had experience as leading a team, right, but I had no idea what being a CEO meant. And so I reached out and was connected to an organization of worldwide CEOs and became part of that. Mm-hmm. We're all men in my group. I was the only female. I was the only startup. And it was the best experience that I could have asked for because they were so helpful. They all ran, multi-million-dollar companies. And so I had that perspective just jumping into it all. So I belonged to a CEO group, so I could start learning about what I needed to do. And then I was developing the company. And then through that process, connected to the angel network, I pitched there. And we had a really positive response, but I turned down that opportunity for funding.
So if you were to think about the skills that you had at the time and the skills that you had to build, which would you think that were really critical for your success at the time?
I never really felt like I had any skills for CEO or leadership at the time because I didn't know any CEO. I didn't know any females that were CEO for sure. But I think the thing that I did have was that project management background. And project management is really wide in scope. So you manage people, you manage budgets, you manage timelines, and it's really just one project that you're working on at a time. And so I had that background, a lot of experience in that background. And I thought, well, that's the way I'm going to look at this, because this is a project, it is a business, but I know the project side, and I'm going to have to learn some of the other skills that I don't have, or bring in people to help offset what I don't know. And that's how I built my team. And it's really about the team, because there's no way I could have done all of that, but I knew what pieces we needed to get it off the ground.
Great. With doing that, and one of the things that I've talked about in a few other podcasts before now is that when people have had to approach investors, and I know for some people that's kind of a new thing, but I do also know for some of the people who are tuning in for this, it's something they may have to do at some point, or really even just pitch their business or a product. Are there any pointers that you might offer, or direction that you could offer people that might help them in putting together a pitch?
Yes, there are a couple. First, you need to talk to your network and just let them know what you're doing. And by network, I mean just anybody that you know. And it doesn't have to be going into pitch mode every time you see one of your friends. It's more like just describing what you're doing and letting them know where you need help. I think when you kind of put that out in the world, you tell people kind of what you're looking for, or the kind of skills you need, the kind of capital that you need, they will connect you in ways that you can't really plan for. And that's what happened in my case. Our investors in our funding came from me talking to people. I was thinking at a bigger level, like I need to go pitch at the angel network, which I did. But then I thought, well, I need to talk to more people. But the way that my funding came was by talking to people who I knew. They connected me to other people. And our funding came from someone that I actually carpooled with. And so it's not really a path that's a repeatable path that I can tell everyone, go to the people you carpool with and raise all your capital. But in my case, it was a friend of mine who was senior level at a bank. And they said, I really want to connect you to this person that I know. And I said, I carpool with that person. And he's like, oh my gosh, you need to talk to them and just tell them what you do. Well, I had been carpooling with this person for at least a year, maybe more, but we never talked about business. We only talked about our kids. And so when I talked to him and approached him, he was like, yeah, show me your financials, show me what your projections are, and let me make some phone calls. And from that, that's where all of our funding has come from. So he brought in a few more people, and then we've been able to raise $5 million over the course of time. And those investors are still with me today. We didn't need to go out to a broader audience from a capital raising perspective. They said, we're going to be in it for the long run. They saw how naive I was when I brought the plan to them and I said, I only need this much money. They knew, because they were experienced investors, they knew that I was going to need more, but they knew that up front. And I didn't know that. They knew what I didn't know. And there's so many things that have happened in running a business that have kind of just unfolded in that way. If you surround yourself with people that have a lot more experience and you're just really open and just kind of, allow the help to be there, it just kind of shows up for you.
There's a book I love, and I read it a few times now. It's called The Luck Factor by Dr. Richard Wiseman. And one of the things he talks about in that book is that people create more success when they build and grow their network. And one of the ways that often people find themselves having more luck, if you like, because we take the principle that we create our luck, is by talking about what they do, which is your story is a great example of, just by having those conversations, because you just don't know who you might be connected to, or who you're talking to might be connected to. And so in talking about these things, you create the opportunities for other people to make those connections on your behalf as well, and say, okay, you should speak to this person. But to find out you were already connected and carpooling with the person who was became an important investor for you, that's incredible.
It just resonates with the story that you and I discussed in the past, where you have a very fine balance between pushing your product or your business to people and being out there the whole time, and then not talking about it at all for it to go into a year before you actually mention it to someone who could be an investor. I think that's a really difficult line to manage.
Yeah, I think a lot of people also think they have to kind of make it by themselves as well. So I think it's important to realize sometimes you do, and you will grow and you will do much more, much quicker with help from other people, especially if you have a kind of business that can go for investment. So great. So some really good pointers there on investment. And you mentioned that you were a woman going into a very male-dominated environment there. And I guess in some senses, a lot of the business world still seems that way. What has been your experience as a woman in business? Any particular things, any particular challenges, or any particular benefits that have come up for you?
I think, I've always been like the sole woman in technology, because I started a long time ago, and I've worked for large companies like IBM and EDS and some of these larger technology companies in my past. But I think the very consistent thing up until probably 5 years ago or so, maybe 10 years ago, was that you are underestimated 100% of the time. Way back then. It's changed so much now. So many women are in technology today, and you see a much stronger balance today in business and in technology in general. But we still have a long way to go. But what I always tell people is I wouldn't be able to be where I'm at today without the support of all of the men who have encouraged me, because the men are still in the capital raising world. And you do have to do things differently for raising capital or communicating, even in board meetings. Those are different. My relationship with my investors is probably a lot different than if I were male. But it's not a bad thing. It's just the way it is right now. So I don't have anything like negative to say about the way the world is, but I do see that it's changing in a positive way. It's getting a lot of attention, and there are groups. I did attend, it's called the Women's Startup Lab in Silicon Valley, and they really focus on helping women get their businesses going, help them to find funding, help them to speak in, the language of business and converting an idea into a business and what that means. So, and they're just a really strong network of women, but I think there's a lot of opportunities for women. So I would encourage, I wouldn't want anyone to say, oh, I'm a woman, I can't do that, because today I just feel like women and men can do really anything that they put their minds to. And, if you go in with the right attitude, and like you said earlier, John, you can't do it by yourself. That's one thing that is really, I really know for sure, because it takes so many people and it takes so much work that it's just really, really, I think it's almost impossible to do it by yourself. If you want something at a really large scale and something to be very impactful. I don't really know anyone who has had a lot of success and been the only person to do it all. Mm-hmm. I personally don't. I mean, y'all may know someone, but
yeah. Well, what in your opinion might be some of the greater benefits of more women coming into technology?
That's a good question. I think in technology and business in general, women bring a different perspective. And when I was part of the CEO group, that when I left, I stayed there for a few years, and I gained so much insight and knowledge But when I did leave, they said, we're going to miss you because you really looked at things a different way. You looked at problems and issues in a way that we really didn't see. And so that's the benefit. I think that it takes a balance of men and women. It also takes a balance of experience. So you have people who are maybe new to a technology or an industry, and you have people who have been there for a while. And that's the same for hiring as well. I feel like teams need to really have that diversity in thinking, and that's what women bring to the table.
There's a really hot and current discussion in Spain about women in leadership, and it's becoming very political in a way that I don't find it positive. Mm-hmm. It's more about pushing women all the way up and forgetting that it's about diversity and how things should be more equal and not just. And yes. I can relate to a lot of things you're saying, because I think here in Spain we are behind. Mm-hmm. And there's some of the things that happen in the U.S. are probably going to come into Spain at some point, and I think they're just speeding up really quickly. And do you have any advice as to that balance? How we can make sure that it's in a positive way, the way that we help women grow and be more present?
Yes, I really like that. The description that you have of it, trying to push women to the top, because here in the United States, we have that in every area, like sports and business, and like every area they're trying to make sure there's such a balance, which is good. But it seems like in the beginning, it swings really far, and it's overly exaggerated in the area, in the way that you want it to go. And that's not good either. I think it goes that way, but then it ends up coming back and it's balanced. It's more of a balance. Mm-hmm. So I think that it's just maybe natural, when change is happening, there's so much focus on a particular goal that it just kind of seems to swing in that direction a little bit heavier in the beginning, and then it'll come back. But I do feel like it does need to be balanced. Otherwise, you get a large group of women, for instance, maybe, everyone is just pushed up to the top, and then they're isolated, and you really don't accomplish your goals, because you really have to have that teamwork and that mindset where you're helping each other and you want each other to succeed, no matter if it's just, from a political standpoint, if you've got an idea, and it just swings to that side, you really need the buy-in of everybody to make it work. Mm. So I think it's just a lot of that understanding, of what we're trying to accomplish, and then helping each other get there.
You're in a leadership position in your business and in the business community from what you do. What is important to you, or what are your values around leadership?
I think for me, it's really just honesty and integrity, and just encouraging people to do what it is that they are best, finding those skills in people and helping them grow in that area. We have team members that have been with one of them. She was my very first employee, and she just celebrated 7 years with us. And so it's just being able to find or see in people what they really can do, their potential, and then building a team around that. So for me, it's just being really open and honest, and letting people know what you're trying to achieve, and then also kind of just living that yourself, and being really transparent. Those are some of the things that are the values that I have.
How would you describe your style of leadership?
Oh, that's a good question. I don't know if there's a name. I'm sure there's a name for it. I just don't know what it is. But I think that that I really want to just, like I said, just encourage people. I don't really know the term for it, but I'm more open. I'm more trusting. If somebody wants to try something, I really support that. we experiment a lot in our company. We try things, we try programs. Some of them work and some of them don't. And I encourage people to try things without the fear of failure. So we don't know exactly what is going to be the silver bullet that makes our company, explode with growth. Nobody does. But if you do the same thing over and over again, you're really never going to get there. And so I encourage a lot of abstract thinking and a lot of creative problem solving. And, we celebrate wins and we celebrate failures because there's learning in both.
Yeah. So you're quite a future thinking, but also very nurturing, coaching sort of leader.
Nurturing is a really good word. So yes, I would just say we're really, I don't know. It's not normal, but it's sort of coming from just this loving place. And you don't hear that word in business that often, I don't think. People have it, but they don't really express it. And I really just want to have a team that feels comfortable, that enjoys working, that being there, and just they have that just a good balance of being at work and then being at home and then having that energy and bringing that back to the office to just help us grow. And we have a really good team that really supports each other, respects each other, and really encourages each other. We also understand each other's strengths and weaknesses, and we make room for people to have that open communication. So when something's not going right, we have those difficult conversations with each other, but it's not in a negative way. It's more of in a growth mindset way.
Did you actively seek to put together a team that had a lot of different strengths and weaknesses, I guess, go with that as well, but that had enough diversity there to be able to cover a lot of areas?
Yes. In the beginning, hiring was something that it's, part art and part science. I think, you want to find people who can do the job and have the right skills. But, and that was important to me, but because our platform was new, it didn't really exist before. And so I knew we could teach the skills that we needed, but we just needed to have the right person who was interested in learning. So we find people that have experience in a particular area, but what we look for is that just the kindness in a person, the openness and the respect, and the willingness to challenge ideas and opinions in a way that creates new ideas. So and it hasn't been perfect along the way, but we've gotten better at it. And in the hiring process, we include everyone. Every single person is part of the hiring process because we're small. If we had 200 or 300 people, there's no way it would happen. But since we're so small, you learn a lot about people when they're being interviewed by someone kind of in a lower position than them. You see a different side of that person. So I'll interview them, and then they'll interview with every single person in the organization, whether the person is a receptionist for us, or whether it's somebody in technology and they're interviewing for a marketing position. Every single person has to interact together in a small company. And so you want to make sure that there's that common level of respect for other people's opinions.
Yeah, you need the interpersonal communication and cogs to be running as smoothly as possible, right?
Yes.
Earlier, when you were talking about being the only woman in technology and in that CEO group, I was thinking back to some similar experiences where in the past, I've always been very outgoing and straightforward and direct. And, the Spanish culture is a little different to the American or the English-speaking culture, as you can imagine. But I've felt that I was a little bit criticized because I was being so direct and straightforward and confident about where I thought we should go in strategic company goals. Have you ever experienced anything like that, or felt like that you actually had to get into that role to fit in with the rest of the men, or not really?
Yes, I have felt like that, but I am not that direct. So when I came into the group, you just notice a difference. So I could tell that they were sort of inviting me to participate in the conversation rather than me saying, okay, here's my ideas and I'd like to take a few minutes and just go through these, I wasn't as direct. I'm still not really as direct. I get my ideas across, but it's not as forceful, I guess. I am passionate about what I do, but I totally understand what you're saying. And I think that way of working could be attributed to men and women. It's just sort of like a way that you work. It's part of who you are. No, I think I haven't felt criticized in that way. I felt more like walking away from a meeting that I didn't express myself.
Right.
Opposite. And then I felt like, oh my gosh, I had this idea or this opinion and I never had an opportunity to share it. So that's what I've had to overcome. I feel like I have overcome that, where I need permission to speak to a larger group when it's, it could be anyone, like a large group of men or just a large group in general. But I kind of can break into that. But I also recognize it in other people more now. So I can invite, if I notice that someone's not participating, then I will say, what are your thoughts? Do you have something to add? I try to include people more because I saw that in myself. That was not a positive thing that I had, but I wish I could have, been more like you.
Well, we all have our experiences and our learnings. I've had to learn from mine too. Calm myself down a little, which I don't like to do, but sometimes you just have to.
Yes.
I too sometimes find that thing of not always piping up and speaking when I could say something, and letting more dominant personalities, often ones that are full of hot air, really.
Yes.
But letting them dominate and just sort of keeping quiet when actually I have something valuable to say. And I am one of those people that I don't like to speak unless I actually have something valuable to contribute to the conversation as well. But then I also, maybe I was just brought up being too polite in my English background of not interrupting people. I think sometimes we can always do to be a bit less polite and a bit more assertive in getting our message across, right?
That's the word.
Being a present influence, isn't it?
It is.
Right.
It's part of the influence and persuasion skills. One of the things that I do believe is that, especially when you've done 11 years now in your business, you have to become the kind of person who can achieve that, because you don't necessarily start out that way. Who do you feel, other than having to speak up a bit more, who do you feel you had to become in order to get to where you are today?
That's a really good question.
It's really actually, yeah.
Yeah. Well, I still wonder that. I mean, I was wondering that, yesterday, and I was asking one of my employees, about mentors, like who is their mentor, who are they, how are they growing, and I think for me, I really couldn't, there wasn't one person that I wanted to be, but from a role model perspective, it was a combination of Mother Teresa and Sun Tzu. It was like a warrior and like a loving person. That's the kind of person who I wanted to be, and I still want to be. I want to be a combination of those two. And I don't really know how to explain it, but I do. I just am always thinking, is there someone exactly like who I want to be that's out there in the world today? And there are a lot of really great leaders out there, and I love to read about them. I love to read about their stories and how they became who they are. But I'm still looking for just someone, kind of out there that would be that exact person. And that's probably my problem, is I'm looking for that exact person, to kind of look at as a role model, and I probably need to widen my scope a little bit.
Yeah, I think it's role models are useful and they can help with modeling, but ultimately I think you do have to make the role model what you imagine to be your best version of yourself. And for you, that sounds like that sort of the kindness warrior, which should probably be the title of your book if you ever write one. Yeah.
Oh, that's good. The kind warrior.
Yeah, I like it. It has a ring to it. Excellent. Now, one of the things that is really important, and we talked a little bit about network and how important that can be to success and not getting there by yourself. How do you feel that you have particularly nurtured and grown your network?
Well, I have tried to just bring together people in different areas. So not just technology. I think that, I try to participate in a lot of different things in a lot of different organizations, so that you just kind of have a bigger view, because technology, I feel like, is just something that is an enabler. It enables your thoughts and ideas. So you can really do anything with technology now today. So it's like, what is your concept? And so I think being involved in a lot of different things, meeting different people and participating in different organizations. I also seek out partnerships for my company. So we've got several different partnerships, and I think that coming together with adjacent kind of companies that you can help each other a lot. And so that's what I've been doing too, to grow my network, is just reach out to other companies that could either, we could help them or they could help us in some way, and then just get to know them. And sometimes that's not a possibility, but they know other people. So it's just constantly reaching out and being very intentional about reaching out to people and getting to know people. And I think that's something that I'm always working on. I'm not great at that, but I think it's something that you have to be really intentional about, because if you don't, then just time goes by and you don't really grow in your network or as a person or as a company.
From the conversations that I've been having as part of this podcast, and even just in general in life, the people I talk to in leadership positions, the people who are CEOs and sometimes motivational speakers or whatever it is they do, who have great leadership experience and authority, and nearly all of them say almost the same kind of things that you've been saying about nurturing people, looking after, encouraging growth and development, allowing people the space to try stuff out and to make mistakes without feeling that that's going to put them out of a job, and really giving a nice growth strategy to that. Now, helping others, I know, is a key part of what you do. Would you say that is that your number one value in business?
Yes, I think that it is the purpose of our business. It's our mission, to connect people, to help each other. But we also do that, internally as a company. So that is what we do. So thank you for shaping that in a way that that is reflected back, because that's so important. Just helping other people. But then our students that are using our platform, they're also reflecting on that. So they're going out into the community, they're helping other people, but then part of what they do is they reflect back on how they were impacted or how they were transformed. So when you help someone, it's not always, just the impact that you're making on that person. It's also changing who you are inside. And the more you do it, the more you're helping other people, the more they benefit, but also it changes your perspective on how we're all connected.
Are there any particular stories that are from your students and the experiences that you are particularly delighted by or thrilled by?
Yes, there is one. There is it's an all-boys school here in Dallas, and he's a musician, and this was several years ago, so he's already graduated. But he went in during Christmas time. He would go into a palliative care facility. So it's a facility where there are terminally ill patients. But he would bring his instrument. I believe he played violin, and he would bring a few other people in with him, and they would play music for the families of the person who was in the facility. Right. And so there was such a positive response to that because it was so calming, and it was just from his heart. And so he ended up forming a nonprofit organization and bringing people to the palliative care facility over and over again, just to play music, just to kind of have that distraction for the family. That was something that was calming and loving. And I love that because that's a student. And there are so many stories. You know, a lot of the students, they will go and they'll help build a house for a family. We have Habitat for Humanity here. I don't know if y'all have that.
We don't have it, but I've certainly heard of it.
So they allow students to come and help build a house. And so they're learning skills, and they're actually helping a family, and they're part of that whole process. And that's something that they take with them. So that's what I'm noticing, you know, across the board, is that students are out in the community, they're helping other people, and then they're learning about the different ways that they can help other people. So even beyond high school, as they're becoming adults, they know that there's a place for them, you know, just in the community to help other people.
That's great. So the kindness ripples out. I love it.
Yes. Yes.
They say that
learn about it. Oh, go ahead. Sorry.
The basis of your company is to connect students' desires to do something in the community with possibilities that exist out there for volunteer work.
Yes. I wanted to provide a platform where they have their own interests, like things they're interested in learning about, or maybe they just like animals. Maybe that's all that they know is animals. Well, in the platform, they can find an opportunity to help animals, or they may know something on their own. So they may go to a shelter, an animal shelter, and help there, or a boarding area for animals. They could help there, but it's just kind of expanding their knowledge around what's available. Because here in the U.S., the example when I started the company, the example for volunteering for students was picking up trash. That was the only volunteering was picking up trash. And I was like, no, we have to expand that, because students they have so much passion for helping in different areas. And so we can't contain them to one thing, like picking up trash. We have to expand everyone's mind on the impact that students can make. So they're doing kinds of things.
One of the things I think is particularly important in the whole service and contribution area, and I coach people in this area a lot, and I have done over some years now, is that I think it's a critical area, because one of the things people underestimate is their ability to make a difference and to be able to have that kind of influence. And I think when we talk about influence and persuasion, I think kindness and compassion and the sort of growth mentality and mindset there are really some of the core elements of positive influence. That there's nothing nothing to be skeptical about with it there. It's not any kind of just trying to persuade you this because I can. It's this is from the heart. This is really what's inside you, and spreading that out to other people and hoping that they take that and do something with it as well. And push that on, because when we can help each other solve problems or create solutions, I think anything becomes possible.
Well, it's also what you do as you coach, right?
Yeah,
in a way.
In my coaching work, certainly is. I think is one of the most critical areas. But on an individual level, that's primarily because people can start to connect with their ability to make a difference and their ability to have an impact on other people. And certainly for people going into business, it's important to know that, okay, well, you do that by giving people what they need and helping them in some way, solving a problem or creating something that they may not have even realized that they need, but they benefit from. And those are the sorts that for me is a great business mindset and mentality to have. And that's why I love that. That's where your business started off from, with that kind of reach out. As
you were talking earlier, Michele, about networking, I was thinking that you're a good example of doing some networking. And I was thinking back to myself. Now I'm going to ask you something, but wait. I was thinking back to myself about, I've been in Valencia, in this city, for a year now, and I've also tried to create a network or to meet people, just to meet people. So I go to tons of events. And yesterday was just at an entrepreneurial event where there's this big fashion company in Spain. You might know it, Ganso. Or you may know it. Okay, well, never mind. And I didn't know there was Spanish, because they're all over the world, and it's a male's brand, so it's a brand for men. And the CEO was just standing on stage, and I was thinking, oh my God, he just cannot talk properly. He was mumbling. He didn't have any slides. He was talking for about 30 minutes. And by the end of his chat, I loved the guy because he was just so authentic. And as he referred back to some of the experiences he'd had as a business owner, it just resonated with what you were talking about, Michele, how he made mistakes in the beginning because he didn't know. He had no idea that he should have actually surrounded himself with people that knew about the market, and how he made a big mistake, or they made a big mistake as founders of the company, his brother himself, when they let in a big investment company to come in and actually give some capital. And you were also mentioning earlier that you had gotten or received some offers that you turned down. So I'm also interested to hear about that. But before I go and ask you that, I thought you could share some of your experiences networking with our audience.
Yeah, that could be a whole podcast episode in itself about networking, and it would probably be a good one to do. Sure. For me, I have multiple networking experiences. You probably do yourself, and I'm sure you do too, Aida. And one of the things with that is there are good networks and there are some not so good. I don't like the networks where you go and people are thrusting a business card in your face and it's like, buy something off me. I did speed networking a couple of times and really hated it, and it's really just somebody trying to say, essentially, throw me some business, throw me a bone here, or buy my stuff yourself. And I never liked that. It was very high pressure, and I thought, if this is what networking is, I'm not cut out for it. It doesn't suit me at all. Since I've been in Spain, I've discovered better ways to network. So I do quite well now. We have the Toastmasters network. We're both a part of that. And so Toastmasters International is a great network. And not just here in Valencia, but we meet people from other clubs in Spain. And some of the competitions and conventions, the network is vast.
That's how we met, Michele, through Toastmasters.
Oh, okay.
We know each other. And so not just that, I've discovered some business networks where people do come and genuinely want to have business friends and help each other out. And so, the global business owners that I'm a part of is, again, a nurturing network, a friends network where you come and connect with people, not to get recommendations necessarily from them, but to have that as a bonus, but to have that outlet and the network and the second degree network of who they know. And that kind of comes back to what we talked a little bit about earlier, about having those conversations about what you do so people can make the connections themselves, not to sort of throw me your business or put me in contact with anyone you know, but just to say, okay, well, let them make the connections. All right, I heard somebody might be interested in this. You're the person I think they should speak to. And those connections happen that way. It's much nicer. It feels much more natural. What
sort of relationship?
Yeah, much more of a natural friendship relationship, even if it is based around business, even if you don't have that much in common. I do think particularly business owners, entrepreneurial kind of people, maybe do at least have that in common, and that's probably enough of a hook to be able to share a lot of similar experiences and similar challenges, right?
Mm-hmm. Yes, I agree. Yeah, because if you're an entrepreneur, you're probably sharing that struggle.
Yes.
At the very least, it's not an easy life. You know, I know from times that we've chatted before, you've not been without some struggle in your own business, and you got through that. How let me just ask you, without going into detail about what that was, but I know it was serious. How did you psychologically get yourself through that and remain positive about it? Because it must have been tough.
Yes, we went through a period in our company where it was very difficult and very challenging. And that's when I was working with you. So you know all the details of that. But it was, I would say that it was a real bonding experience for our team and our investors. It was a time where we could have really been fragmented and the entire company could have gone away at that time. But instead, we all pulled together and kind of backed each other up. But I would say if I had to pick one thing, it was really just my faith, that belief in what I was doing and the purpose of our company. And I focused on that. And I just tried to move forward with the resources that I had in the best way that I could, and just believed that the mission of the company was bigger than the challenge that I was facing at the time. And really, the way I say it, and when it all ended, the problem ended. The last email that went out, the very last words were "love wins." And that was kind of what happened in that particular situation. It was really just such a battle for a company that was our size and so small and growing. And for us to have overcome that particular challenge in our company's life was a miracle. And it was just something that, you know, that we'll never forget. None of our team and none of our investors, but it really was something in the end that made us stronger. So I think some of the challenges that you face, you really have to look at yourself and you have to say, is this worth the fight? You know, is this worth the energy that's going to be required to push the company forward? And what I tell people too is that every day you have an opportunity to give up. There are way more challenging days than there are, you know, great, you know, stories. So every single day is a decision to move forward with what you have and not complain or look at all of the negative things. It's seeing what you have to work with and pushing forward. And it's not easy. And it really is, every single day is a decision. And 11 years is a long time. We're still going and we're still growing. And it's I don't really see, there's not like a clear plan. That's the other thing too. A lot of people need a plan and specific steps and milestones, but having a project management background, I know that you build a framework and you are working toward a goal, but the plan changes and you have to be able to move forward with what you have without having a specific plan and being disappointed. Because if you miss something along the way and you're disappointed and you can't recover from that, that's what's going to set you back. So you have to be able to just keep going forward and making a new plan. You have the same goal, but your plan may have to be adjusted.
Resilience is such an important attitude to have or value to have as a leader, right?
Yes. Resilience, that's the right word.
Sometimes you don't really know how resilient you are. Well, in fact, you probably don't ever really know how resilient you are until it gets tested, right? And you have to sometimes keep for those. The
resilience and the courage that you never knew that you had inside of you, all those things are revealed along the way. And that's what makes life so fun. You know, it's just, I really feel like this is the reason why I'm here. This is the reason why I was put in the world, was to do this particular company. So I'm just thankful every day And I'm thankful for my team, and we all feel the same way, that we're making a positive difference. And things could have been done differently. We could have done things a lot differently along the way, but it's only looking back that you can see all of that.
If there was a short message you could send back in time to yourself when you first started out on this business journey, what would it be?
Oh, I think, just don't give up. I wouldn't have revealed anything else. I would have just said, whatever happens, don't give up.
Yeah. These challenges before you get to them, you might not want to deal with them, right?
Right. I think me, being so naive going into this and not having experience with another company or being a CEO, I think that has been a huge advantage for me, because if I had known like some of these challenges that we would have faced, or some of the difficulties, I don't know if I would have wanted to do it, but when you're faced with it and you have to push through it, then, I'm really proud of what we've done. And, I'm glad I didn't have time to think about it in advance. Like, sometimes you just have to make a decision, and you have to go with it. So
we do our best moment to moment.
Yes.
Absolutely. Well, for me, it's a really interesting chat, and it's lovely to hear. I'm thrilled for you that things are going well with your business, and that you got through the tough times, and that things are blossoming again for you, which is really good to hear. And that you're sending out so much kindness into the world as well. So I think what you're doing is wonderful. If our listeners want to get in touch with you or find out more about you, how can they do that?
Anyone can go to our website. It's x2vol.com, and contact me that way, or through my email is mpitman@intelliVOL.com.
I'm going to have to ask you to repeat your website, because I didn't catch that.
Oh, it's mpitman, MPITMAN @intelliVOL.com. So intelliVOL is the name of the company, and X2Vol is our product. And but I'm also on LinkedIn for Michele Pitman, and you can find me there too. But I would love, if anybody has any questions about starting a company, or just, I would love to help anyone, if they have any questions. So
if there are any young women thinking about getting into technology who think they'd like to speak to you, that could be good.
Yes, and I have spoken to to groups of women, and to encourage them, and really anyone, women or men. I just think that there's so much opportunity today, and it's a great time to be creating a business. So you really can do anything that you want to do.
I have one more question before we just, it may not be at the right moment, but have you ever considered internationalization of the company? Or is your market always going to be the US?
We were international. So we were in several different companies a few years ago, but the privacy laws have changed. The student data and privacy laws have changed over the last 2 years. And so we brought our business back to North America, just because of the legal reasons. But I would love to expand. We did work in multiple countries before, so I would like to get back to that place. But for right now, just for the liability and the data, so many things in and around data are changing right now. The laws are really in flux. Like you remember how we were talking about how things swing really far to one way? Yes. Right now, data is one of those things. They're really tightening down the data, because they don't really know in what ways it can be used completely. And so the laws have really gotten just kind of draconian in some ways. Right. And so I've pulled it all back, because every country is different in terms of their privacy and their data laws.
I guess it'll all settle at some point, and then you can see where the land lies and where there might be some room to move forward. But
yeah, it's not a bad thing. It's just the time that we're in right now. Mm. So
great, fantastic, Michele. Thank you for your time. Is there anything you wish we'd asked you today?
Let's see. No, I think you did a great job, and I'm excited for you and for your podcast as well. I think that what you're doing is you're just really, putting out a lot of information for people to, really grow themselves. So thank you for that.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. I think it's super important. I want people to really find their inner leadership, find some motivation, find some value from all this stuff. And I think, it's interesting that just from doing these podcasts, one of the messages that does keep coming up over and over again is about being more nurturing and really helping people, allowing people space to grow, but definitely having that resilience and never quit mentality in your business as well, and understanding we have to become bigger than the problems that come into our lives.
Yes.
And that is a very nice wrap up.
Michele, thank you for your time and for volunteering to come and be part of the podcast. It's been a real pleasure chatting to you. Aida, thank you for coming in and being my guest host today as well.
Thank you for inviting us.
And it's been a lot of fun.
Great to meet you, Michele.
It's so good to meet you too. Thank you both.
I hope you've enjoyed the show. Tune in next time. If you think you would make a great guest on the podcast, or you know someone who would, please get in touch with us. Today could be the perfect day for you to start your own podcast. Whether you're looking for a new marketing channel, you have a message you want to share with the world, or you just think it would be fun to have your own talk show, it is. Podcasting is an easy, inexpensive, and fun way to expand your reach online. Buzzsprout is hands down the easiest and best way to launch, promote, and track your podcast. Your show can be online and listed with all major podcast directories like Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google Podcasts, and more within minutes of finishing your recording. Podcasting isn't hard when you have the right partners, and the team at Buzzsprout is passionate about helping you succeed. Join over 100,000 podcasters like myself already using Buzzsprout to get their message out into the world. Find the link in the show notes. See you next time.